So I'm on the PTR, checking out the new Arcane mage changes. I've been playing around for it for a couple of hours, checking out the new spells, new talent changes, and there's been a lot. And I'm just sort of feely crafting in which was going to be the best in pre-patch and further going on into Shadowlands itself. Now, in case you don't know, there was a new build today that came out on the PTR that changed a crap ton of abilities. It changed Focus Magic, it changed Arcane Power, it changed Runa Power, it changed Arcane Echo, which is a new ability, or a new talent rather, it changed Time Anomaly, it swapped Nether Tempest to another row. There's a lot of stuff. So basically what I've been looking at right now, which I believe is going to be the best, are these current talents that I have: Amplification, Shimmer, Runa Power, Arcane Echo, Chrono Shift, you know, the standard stuff. Enlightened, which is basically Equipose but into a talent, and then finally Overpowered. Now obviously I don't know this, so don't go taking this for granted, but looking at the numbers, or sorry, looking at the spells themselves, this is likely going to be what you're going to play, at least in pre-patch. Now, so what's changed? Amplification is changed ever since the beta. So the current mage that I'm playing on right now, which is on the PTR, is sort of like a weird morph between the beta mage and the new changes that came today. So basically they've copied over the beta mage onto the PTR, and well, I suppose they're trying to find out what people are gonna play. So amplification is the same as it is on live right now. However, rather than rather than one extra missiles, it's now on the PTR. It's 2 extra missiles. So basically, just a small buff to the spell itself, or the talent itself. Ruler Freeze is just the same, and Arcane Familiar. It's just the same as on the live service as well. Shimmer, standard stuff. Slipstream, standard stuff. Master of Time. This is a new ability that they added today on the PTR. Now what this thing does is that whenever you alter time, or first of all it reduces the cooldown of alter time, so you'll have alter time more, but it also reduces the cooldown of your blink whenever you blink back in the alter time. So basically what you could do is, if I have this spell, I could alter time, say blink away from like a circle on the ground or something, and then alter time back, and just like that I have blink again to do whatever I want with. Now, will this ever be used? Maybe in some niche situations. I'm not quite sure. I doubt it though, because you're offering up Shimmer for it, so it's not likely. But perhaps if you need a blink for like say blinking stunts on some boss fights or dungeon fights, likely in PvP might be used, because blink, in case you didn't know, Shimmer doesn't break stunts and blink do. So that could be maybe where it could be used. A Slipstream, just like it were before, it stays the same. I don't know really where this is used. I know you could use it on fights like Varimathras, if you guys played that fight, basically where you had to stand within the group and you couldn't blink away. And if you did blink away, there were ad spawning and it was just a mess. That could be used for that fight, or those types of fights, but other than that, I think Shimmer is just going to be just as usual, the baseline. Now the next row, level 30 row, there's been a lot of changes, especially compared to live. Incanus Flow is the only spell that's the same as live here. It just does a normal thing, it's cycling down from 4% to 20% and vice versa every 10 seconds, nothing new. Focus Magic is a new spell. Now what this does is that you actually buff someone else. So say I pick this guy, try to buff him, okay, doesn't work. It's a bit buggy right now. Let's see if I can make it work. So if you can see, it says you can't target yourself. That's actually a bug. I don't know if it's doing this because they're mages as well. I have gotten it to work previously, so it should work. just refuses to now, I suppose. That's annoying. Okay, so it worked on this guy at least. Now this guy isn't in combat, but you get the gist. You give it to someone else. And when you do give it to someone else, it increases their crit chance by 5%. So it's a buff, essentially. What it also does is that whenever this person that you give it to crits themselves, you also get 5% crit. So you give them 5% crit, whenever they crit, they give you 5% crit. Now, this tooltip is actually slightly bugged because it does more than what it actually says it does. Let's see if I can get it to work here. Maybe it wants to cast. For some reason I can't. Okay, this guy. I got it to work on this guy. So here's the buff. So spell critical chance increased by 5% and intellect increased by 2%. Now, why is it 2%? And why does it continue going up? So what it actually does on top of giving you 5% crit is that whenever this person that you give it to crits, you get a stacking buff of intellect. Stacking up to 8 times. So every time the person crits, you get 1% more intellect. So just looking at it, like just numbers wise, at least as it is right now, if you were to have 100% uptime of focus magic, which I think you will likely have on, or at least close to, on boss fights, especially if it's pure single target and you're just smacking a boss like a patchwork boss or something, then you'll likely have close to, if not 100% uptime of focus magic. And I do believe if you do have that, it's going to be better than a cannon's flow, because then you'll have 8% intellect and 5% critical strike chance on top of giving 5% crit to anyone else. And that's just purely better than a cannon's flow. Now, for the last change in this talent, there's Rune of Power. Rune of Power does the same thing that it does on live. It creates a rune on the ground, and whenever you stand inside of the rune, you get more damage. Now, the difference between this version of Rune of Power and the live version of Rune of Power is that this version only pops Rune of Power whenever you press cooldowns, which is obviously a big difference, because while on live service you would put it down and then press your cooldowns, now it just automatically puts down itself whenever you press cooldowns. So I'll demonstrate. So say I'm going into my opener, touch the Magi, and then I press Arcane Power, and then as you can see, it's automatically put down on the ground. I don't have to actually press the spell itself, it just does it by itself. Now this is actually a big nerf to this spell. It sort of speaks to itself, because, well, normally would be a 40-second cooldown with a charge of 2 charges. And now it's only inside of your DPS main DPS cooldowns. And this goes for all specs. It goes for Combustion, and it goes for Ice Veins for Frost and Fire. So I don't really know whether this is going to be used over Focus Magic and or in Canon's Flow. I would say likely for Arcane, likely not for Frost, and we'll see about Fire. But if I were to guess, Rune of Power is still the way to go for Arcane Mage, just because of, well, they have all of their damage inside of their DPS window of Arcane Power, basically. Now, in case you're wondering, Rune of Power still puts the rune on the ground. It still does the exact same thing, so if you move out of it, you're not getting the buff. It doesn't follow you around, just like a 40% DPS increase to your cooldowns. It's still a rune on the ground that you have to stand on top of. But it's, again, only inside of your cooldowns. On the level 35 row, you have Resonance, just like on live servers, only that this time it's 15% increased damage, and on live I believe it's 10%, so slightly buffed. And you also have Nether Tempest. They moved this talent down from the level 45 row, so it used to be on this row, together with Reverberate and Supernova, but they changed it to level 35. And then finally the last spell, which also got added today, is called Arcane Echo. What this does is it places, so whenever you touch the Magi, which is a spell, whenever you touch the Magi, it causes, sorry, for every spell inside of Touch of the Magi, it causes an explosion that deals whatever amount of damage to 8 nearby enemies. And this does work on single target. So I'm single target right now with Touch of Magi on, and as you can see on the DPS chart, Arcane Echo is there, both on single targets and on AoE. Now this is target capped to 8 enemies, but let's be honest, you're not likely to attack 8 nearby enemies anyway, because Touch of Magi is a rather small radius. It's not like an Arcane Explosion or anything. So just looking at it rawly, Resonance could be used on single targets. We'll see about the numbers regarding that. Nether Tempo is likely never used on single targets unless they buff the damage of it like greatly. And Arcane Echo, obviously, it's just a passive. It does more damage whenever you press Touch of the Magi. So we'll see about Resonance or Arcane Echo, which one is going to be the best on single targets. If I were to guess, I would say Arcane Echo, because you don't really Arcane Barrage very often, at least in my experience from raid testing and such things. So we'll see about that. Going on to level 40 row, this is just the same as it is on live. You have your Chrono Shifts, makes you run faster and slows enemies. You have your Ice Ward, double Frost Nova charges, and finally Ring of Frost. Those are all just the same as they are on live. So level 45, they've slightly changed Reverberate. It does the same thing as it does on live, only that basically it does 10%, or has a 10% bigger chance than it does on live to grant you an extra arcane charge. So it used to be 40, now it's 50. Not a big deal. Enlightened, as I mentioned briefly earlier, is basically Equipose, the Equipose Azurite trait baked into a talent. So whenever you are above 70% mana, you have 8% increased damage, and whenever you're below 70% mana, you have some more mana regen. Supernova, I believe, does slightly more damage than it does on live, at least in terms of like the numbers, like regarding your health and the damage you deal with other spells. But I still don't think this is gonna be likely, at least as it is with the current numbers, ever going to be used instead of Enlightened, simply because the numbers don't add up. Dealing 317 and say 100% more, even if it crits, it's still not going to be enough damage to outdo Enlightened, which just gives you basically 8% more damage all of the time. And finally, moved on to the final row, level 50 row. You have Overpowered. Again, the exact same thing as it does on live. Arcane Power does more damage, and you have more reduced mana costs. Time Anomaly is basically the same as it is on live, however it's slightly changed. You have Arcane Power for 8 seconds, I believe it's like 6 or something like that on live. And of course you can also evocate, or you can get evocate, but what's changed is that you can gain Time Warp for 6 seconds. So that's new today. We'll see how the numbers work out on this. Obviously this is one of those talents where it depends how much it procs, whether it's going to be better than the other 2 talents in the row. But I would say Overpowered is slightly better than Time Anomaly, at least if the proc rate stays the same as it has on live, because on live it's simply just not been better. But then again, they could change the proc rate and they could change the timings or whatever, so numbers could add up in the end anyway. And then finally Arcane Orb, again the exact same thing as on live. Use an Arcane Orb, you get Arcane Chargers, it does damage, you get the gist. I believe that's about it for the actual spell changes, or the talent changes. Now there have been a couple of spell changes that I can briefly go through as well. So first of all, Arcane Power used to be on the beta, it used to be on a 3-minute cooldown, and they've changed that in current build to 2 minutes. So that's not only a buff to Arcane, but also of course a buff to Overpowered, because the more Arcane powers, the more Overpowered becomes better. Simple enough. What's also different from live? Well, you have your alter time, of course. If you've been playing this game earlier, then if you played this game in Warlords of Draenor and earlier, you know the spell. You press it, and then you can walk around. You can do your stuff. You can Arcane Explosion. You can, do all kinds of stuff, and you press it again. And I go back to the place where I was before. Now this works with health, so if you take some damage, then you press it again, just like the Emperor Shield, you get your health back. Evocation the same, Greater Invis the same. Presence of Mind, on live I believe it's only one extra Arcane Blast you get, and in Shadowlands and in PTR it's 2 Arcane Blasts. Now this will also be buffed when you're level 54 because of rank 2. So rank 2 there's going to be an additional 1%, or an additional 1 extra cast, so it's going to be 3 whenever you're level 54 and it's when raiding. Something else that's new is Conjure Mana Gem. This is also a new spell that they're bringing back. Basically you create a couple of gems or a couple of mana gems, and you can place them on your bars, and whenever you use them you get 10% mana. So it's basically like a potion, but for only Arcane mages. So say I'm in my burst phase right now, I'm doing my stuff, I'm using my mana, and then I'm thinking, oh shit, I need some more mana, or a fucked up rotation or whatnot. I'll just eat the mana gem, and I get 10% mana back. Touch of the Magi is changed from live. So on live it's just a proc that can proc whenever. But in Shadowlands it's a spell. So it does the exact same thing as it does on live. So when it procs on live, the amount of damage you do within the window of when it procs is like pulled up and then exploded into an AoE sort of massive AoE pool of damage. Right. So it does the same thing, however now it's a spell. So you use it, say you're going into burn phase, you would always use it before going into burn phase. So you use it, pop your arcane power, pop your POMs, and then you're blasting. As you can see, so I've done a bunch of damage, boom, it pops, and then it's done taking 10k damage. This thing can't crit, by the way. So this time it didn't crit, it only did a normal hit for 8k, but if it would have crit, it would have done 16k. You get the gist. What's also changed about this ability is that, in case you didn't notice, they've removed Charged Up. So Charged Up is no longer a talent. They removed Charged Up and gave us Arcane Echo, and instead of blatantly removing it for an entire kit, they baked in Charged Up into Touch of the Magi. So Touch of the Magi actually gives you 4 Arcane Charges whenever you use it. In case you can see, Touch of the Magi is also a 45-second cooldown, so it's the same cooldown as Charge Type used to be as well. Or at least I believe Charge Type is a 45-second cooldown. So the play style will likely be the same, only that obviously right now you're pressing Touch of the Magi rather than Charge Top, and it does more damage. That's about it. Other than that, there's not many changes to Arcane Mage. There is this thing, which I haven't unlocked yet because it unlocks at level 52, and I'm only level 50 I believe. Yeah. So if you played in Legion, there was this legendary, there were a pair of legendary legs that would give you mana every time you're Arcane barraged, or for the amount of mana would depend on how many Arcane charges you had. But this is the same principle, only that it's slightly less mana. So in Legion it used to be 4% per charge, and in Shadowlands it's going to be 2% per charge. Granted, this is not a legendary, so it's just in a baseline kit, so it's fine. But basically, if you have 4 Arcane charges, you're gonna get 8% mana back whenever you're Arcane barrage. So that's gonna be a bit of a make it easier, I suppose, to not fuck up the rotation. Without this, it could be a bit hard to come back as an Arcane Mage if you fucked up your rotation because of how the mana works. But with this inside of the kit, if you fuck up slightly, you can just go to 4 Arcane charges, Arcane barrage, and then eventually you're gonna get up to over 70% mana, even if you fuck up. And then finally there's this that unlocks at level 56, basically just gives you 5 seconds more of Arcane power. On live, it's 10 seconds, and in Shadowlands it's going to be 15 seconds, which could be really good, considering Arcane Power is also 15 seconds now. So this obviously synergizes very well with Arcane Power, because Arcane Power is 15 seconds, Go Reckon Runa Power is also 15 seconds. So we'll see about that. Other than that, I don't think there are many more changes, to be honest. I might have missed a few things, but that's about it for the Arcane Mage, at least in the current build. So yeah, thanks for watching.